You may remember that my background is in art and design. I studied it as well as worked for the premier color company revered by most designers. My love of art is shared with my wonderful friend and art dealer, Cheryl Sokolow.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me here.
How is the art market at this time?
Things were tough for a couple of years, and I think all the galleries and everybody in the business kind of experienced it, but I really feel positive. The art fairs are reporting record sales, and over the past couple of years, I was in Chelsea last night. It was a buzz with people. I went to several shows. The gallerists were happy. They said that shows are selling, and I really do think that confidence is building amongst collectors, and that things are really picking up.
That's great. How do you choose your artists?
Well, I work with artists. Well, I specialize in sculpture, so that cuts out 90% of artists today. So I have a very specialized niche, and I generally tend to work with sculptors that are very hands-on, produce their own work, make their own work. It sounds kind of obvious, well, an artist makes their own work, but a lot of sculptors today don't. So I really place a lot of emphasis on craftsmanship and artists that are really hands-on in their own creative process. I also gravitate toward artists who are working in kind of an organic fashion as opposed to conceptual.
What inspired you to enter into this field?
Well, I was kind of born into it. My mother was a sculptor, Isabel Sokolow, in very large-scale metalwork. She was a welder, and at the time she was one of the few women in the field. I grew up in art classes by the time I was 8 or 9 years old, where my mother had the freedom to also take an art class, so she kind of put me there so I can kind of sketch and she could do her thing. So it really did influence me, and it actually gave me my foundation for my course of study, which was art history and specializing in sculpture specifically. And this is why I actually really try to include women in my programs. And I'm happy to have a body of my mother's work still, which I've been successful in placing in private collections, and I include in many of my exhibitions. So a very strong influence in my childhood.
That's great. So what can you tell me about some of the other artists that you represent?
I work with an artist named Barrett, who is probably my #1 artist.
I love his work.
Yes. He has a very wide appeal. His work is bright and colorful, and he works very organically with shapes and form. And he's really comes from a tradition of sculptors that are still making their own work, very hands-on, doing their own fabrication. He's collected in the Vero Art Museum, and he's in a lot of collections in the United States and in Europe.
And who are some of the female artists that you're working with today?
Carolyn Rams is a female, brilliant female sculptor that I work with, who is Austrian, but is living here in upstate New York, and she works in marble, and she's very well known in the Middle East and Japan. She's collected in museums in China and Japan, and she was in the Biennale in Cairo about 2 years ago, and she's done a lot of work in Abu Dhabi and throughout the Middle East.
And what are some of the special projects that you're working on now?
Well, I'm going to I think I'm going to open a sculpture garden in Connecticut to introduce large-scale work to the community and to give people the opportunity to interact with large-scale work. I also will continue my work at the Bridge Gardens in Bridgehampton, and continue to work with private clients to help them find the perfect piece for their home or for their outdoor environment.
That's great.